Supreme Court nomination. They call it a hostile choice. So what's going to happen? Joining us now is Rhode Island Democrat Sheldon Whitehouse, a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. The Republicans say Gorsuch got a complete pass by you guys the first time round. Why a change now?
Yeah, he was voice voted, 11 or so years ago onto the circuit court. I think two things are different. First of all, the Supreme Court is, everybody concedes, different than the circuit court, which is why it's been protected by leaving the 60-vote margin in place. But the second thing is that we have seen the emergence of the five-member right-wing bloc on the Supreme Court that is not judicially conservative so much as it is politically conservative and very activist at pursuing those politically conservative goals. So the big question for Judge Gorsuch is he going to be a truly judicially conservative judge,
right,
or is he going to rebuild the Republican majority on the court that became such a wrecking crew in favor of corporate special interests, Republican elections advantage, and the right-wing social agenda?
You know, I'm sure you're doing your homework. You're known for doing your homework. I spent time last night. One, it was hard to find cases that were written by Gorsuch on that appellate panel that went to the kinds of issues that you'll be concerned about with SCOTUS. And then when I did find decisions, he seemed to be fairly hewing to existing standards, not looking to strike out new ground. What do you see?
Well, I think the big problem in the hearing coming up is going to be the unknown. How can you predict the future? I do think that the American people have been very poorly served by what those five judges did. That campaign of activist decisions, I think, has discredited the court. It has created lasting damage in decisions like Citizens United, which I don't think virtually anybody in America thinks has improved our democracy. Huge numbers oppose it, but it's been such a boon for big billionaire special interests and for the fossil fuel industry and all of that. So that's where I think our focus needs to be. I think picking through his record on the circuit may or may not give clues as to that, but making the case that this can't happen again. We cannot have a Supreme Court that is delivering politically conservative outcomes, no matter how activist it requires the judges to be. 5-4, 5-4, 5-4. It's a pattern, Chris. It's not a coincidence.
Right, but you know, you have two areas of pushback. One is elections have consequences, which is a little hackneyed but true nonetheless. And two, well, by your own standard that, well, we have to be careful because we can't judge the unknown, well, that would mean that nobody would be acceptable to you unless it was a very activist judge that you liked their decisions, and you're not going to get that. So how do you settle?
Don't forget that we've got hearings and a lot of time ahead to look at his record more closely. So this may shake itself out more. I think the hearings can be sometimes a process that brings things to light and clarifies some of these questions. So I think the point now is not so much that this guy is or isn't qualified. The point right now is that we've got to make sure we try to protect the court from becoming the kind of political delivery system that the five Republicans have made it. And that is a novelty in the Supreme Court's history. In my view, going all the way back, I mean, the last example would be the judges that worked so hard to protect slavery back in the old days. And since then, we've had a very long run of judges who took being a judge seriously and who called balls and strikes. And since then, since Roberts, basically, we've had a very activist court that delivered for these big political interests and kind of has made a joke of the notion of calling balls and strikes. They're moving the strike zone around to help their favorite interests.
All right, I get where you're coming from on it. We'll see what the hearings yield. You got a little bit more leverage here because unless the filibuster gets blown up, you got a 60-vote cap that you need on these, so you have some more leverage. On the cabinet side, you don't have that leverage. You're going to have cloture votes, up and down votes. But you're walking out of hearings and you're saying you're going to fight. To what end are the Democrats fighting this? What is the good fight here for you guys?
I think the key is to make sure that the American people are aware of the extent to which huge conflicts of interest and huge failures of disclosure and transparency continue to bedevil these nominees. And as they go forward, Chris, I've been a prosecutor for many years, and my experience is that where there are conflicts, scandals will follow. And it's very, very important for the American people to know what these lurking conflicts of interest are, and for us to continue to pursue them even as these people are in office. Over and over again, we've seen cabinet officials have to leave office in disgrace because they have bowed down to the special interests and because they have had these terrible conflicts of interest. And it's so easy to foresee that in the Trump administration, which probably has the worst conflicts of interest of any swamp cabinet ever.
But, you know, as a prosecutor, I don't have to tell you, we only know what you show. So when you guys come up with the goods on people, that will embolden your case. The optics right now are how much opposition for the sake of opposition are the Democrats going to play to, especially after what we just lived through with the Republicans, who did exactly that by decree, and the Democrats said it was so wrong for so long. What do you think the future holds?
Let's look at Pruitt, the nominee for the EPA. Here's a guy who ran a dark money operation and won't disclose anything that happened in the dark money operation, in which it looks like millions of dollars changed hands. Clearly there's a basis for a potential conflict of interest there. He hasn't coughed up 3,000 emails between himself and his office and the big fossil fuel special interests. It's just wrong to come in and not have that kind of disclosure. Until very recently, it was the Republicans who were absolutely insistent on disclosure of emails, but now that it's emails between a nominee, the fossil fuel interests that they so adore, then suddenly they've lost interest completely. But I think the American people understand that if you've got 3,000 emails going back and forth with the interests you're supposed to regulate, my God, we ought to have a look at them to see if that signals an unacceptable conflict of interest.
So I guess the challenge for you guys is to make things accessible to the public in a way they can be on your side and overwhelm your political minority right now. Senator, White House...
Bring the facts to light, Chris. Bring the facts to light.
Well, that's what we do every damn day. Senator, thanks for joining us on New Day. We'll see you again.
Thank you.
Allison.
You sound like you're tired of it, Chris.
No.